Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Unfold, where every voice reveals a layer of truth, passion, and purpose. Last week, we explored young talent and creativity with Arnav Narahari Sethi, who showed what passion looks like at 13. Today, we are going to see the similar journey of transformation, but from a completely different lens of education, career, and immigrants' life. So, my guest today in the studio is somebody who has become the voice of hope and change for thousands of immigrants and international students. She has not only found her own path, but has helped so many others to find theirs. Welcome, Ritika.
Hi.
My guest today here is Ritika Saraswat, who is also founder and CEO of Redefined, a thriving community of 50,000 plus international students and newcomers across Canada. We will talk more about what you do, because I read somewhere when I was reading about you that you're also 2 times TEDx speaker and you're also the LinkedIn top voice, as well as you work in a leading consulting firm, right? So, okay, let's start from there. Now, since I've given this very elaborate introduction, but in a nutshell, how do you manage to wear so many hats in such a young age?
Absolutely. I don't know if I'm very young, honestly, anymore. I think I was young when I started. It's been a few years since then, but I think it's a question I get very often is like, how are you managing so many things? Yes. I think for me, a bit of it is when you're doing something that's larger than you, you have to make it work. There is no option around it. So that's number one, that I accept the reality that, we started this to do something and we can't back down until it's done.
Okay.
And we're far away from what needs to be done, because there are about 1.5 million immigrants in this country. So a lot of people that still need to be impacted. But I think what really helps is honestly just time management and prioritizing things at every moment or every hour. I often say this to people, especially doing a 9-to-5 job. It's not like 9 to 5, you have meetings back to back. So I'm more of that person is like, at 10 a.m., let's say if I have a redefined meeting that is more important to be addressed, I do that and figure out work afterwards. And making sure each stakeholder and each party involved is happy with the quality of the work and everything you're doing. I think it all pans out. Am I doing it successfully? Maybe not. Sometimes it's like good days, bad days, but I think
sometimes I think it's very overrated. If you have a vision and you think you're taking step towards that, I would call it a success any day. So okay, going to that, you yourself at some point were an immigrant, were an international student, right? And you found Redefined at 21, right? So even to be able to think of something like that at that age, I'm sure that came from somewhere from a personal journey. So can you take us back to what actually made you realize that, international students are facing struggles and which cannot be addressed by addressing individuals, probably a systemic change. So what probably something from your experience?
Absolutely. I think Redefined was born purely through my own experiences, facing things firsthand and secondhand. So I think I came to Canada about 7.5, 8 years ago. And when I came in, we all come in with suitcases full of hopes and dreams of the kind of person we want to become. Or I want to make $1 million, whatever those dreams are, right?
Absolutely.
Because your parents have invested so much. So that's what I came in with as well. But I think the moment I landed in the country and took a cab, let's say from the airport to, my university, I just realized how expensive Canada really is. And it was like this realization that, oh my God, we got to figure things out quick, because there's so much I have to give back to my parents for, the investments that they're making. And when I started getting out there in the market, I realized that, just because, I'm not from the country, or just because English may not be my first language, or because I don't have Canadian experiences, I was facing a lot of challenges entering the space. And, when you experience something, you're like, it's okay, it's maybe just me, I'm the problem. Right? But then I started working part-time jobs in the meanwhile, while I was in university, just to, pay for rent, etc., and support my family as much as I can, as most of us do when we come here. So when I started working part-time, I think that was when it was really eye-opening, because any of the people I was working around, they were twice my age, but people working part-time jobs. And I remember asking them, what's your background? And these were people with master's degrees, PhDs, people who had 5 to 10 years of work experience from back home. And I was like, what are you doing here?
It sounds like story of most of us who are watching here.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I was like, what are you guys doing here? And And that's when I started realizing that, okay, what started off as a temporary job for them ended up becoming a permanent reality for them in many ways, just because they maybe got used to it over time, and no one was there to guide them and show them the right direction, and they just gave into the challenges. So that's when the idea was like, oh my God, we got to do something about this and help people bridge the gap between potential to opportunity. And that's how Redefine was born.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Ritika. I think, like I said in between, that sounded like a story of many, or probably the most of us. I myself was an immigrant at some point.
Yeah.
But again, everybody's journey is very, very different, right? So I read somewhere that now Redefine, your baby that you started somewhere, is a community of more than 50,000 people across Canada, right? So bringing so many people within such a short period of time definitely requires a lot of trust to be able to build that community, right? Especially where somebody is trusting you with guiding them, right, for their career or whatever their path is. How did you work on that? What worked for you? If you want to, like, maybe touch a few of those.
Absolutely. I think for us, I think a lot of people think building a community is just about, like, as you mentioned, like bringing people together. And I think it is that. But I think for us, it's like, I realized very soon, building a community isn't just one person leading the boat. You gotta, like, not just be a leader who stands in the front, but you gotta be a leader who takes people along with you. And I think that was my priority. So when I first started and people started joining along, I was like, okay, how do you empower each of these individuals to be the Ritika in a way where they're empowering so many more to kind of join along on the same journey? And I think that's been one of the biggest reasons for our success, which I think a lot of people realize once they kind of look into it, is even we started doing a lot of clubs, let's say across universities, colleges, which were under Redefined, where again, we were basically empowering students, current international students, on how they can be those leaders and guide other students, because they maybe have 1 year of more experience than the others. And how do you kind of then follow it up and, like, keep giving back to one another? So I think that was what really kind of set the path for us to really build something that has the trust, because you feel like it's your family members coming together.
I think what I'm gathering from what you're saying is that relatability.
Yes.
They're able to see that, okay, somebody like me is able to make it, right?
Correct.
So, it's very relatable, and especially when you talk them through your own lived and walked experience. So it becomes so much more relatable than probably they just reading it on an article or a blog, or just listening about some far-fetched successful person, seeing somebody up close. Okay, that's a beautiful one. So I'm sure, like, because you have worked with so many people, helped them find their own path. Do you have some success stories that you really feel are transformative, or sometimes, like you mentioned in the beginning of the episode, bigger than you? Like, oh, I mean, this is the impact that I've made. Some favorite stories of, like, one probably, if you can share with us.
Yeah, I think there are absolutely a lot. But I think a common journey that we have noticed is most of the students, when they come into our community, they are very lost. A lot of them who are especially based out of areas like Brampton, Scarborough, who are far away from the city life and the core people, they don't have the right people around them. A lot of them are surrounded by other folks who are also misguided, where they are all going down the direction of getting a part-time job, then getting a PR, and then figuring out life. But the reality is, if you want to, like, achieve a long-term goal, you got to figure out life first, and that requires you to be surrounded by the right people who can help you prioritize what's more important right now.
Absolutely.
A lot of us, I think, prioritize short-term gains, which could be money through part-time jobs.
Yes, quick and addressing immediate needs, like the rent today, today's groceries, or for a month maybe. I've seen a lot of such cases, like you say, and so many examples kind of flash in front of my eyes. Though we say part-time job, but they are demanding. They're going to take your time and energy, right? That time for you to get ready, to take yourself there, and that energy. And when you're back, you kind of don't have that energy to prepare for something better, and then you're like, it's a cycle, right? It's a web.
Yeah, and I feel like when you prioritize those short-term goals, you end up compromising the long-term ambitions that you have, and you find yourself doing exactly what you're doing in the moment, and 10 years down the line, you're wondering, how did this even happen? And why is that other person ahead of me, right? And I think that's the biggest transformation we have seen. Girish, for example, is a person who comes to mind. I recently attended the event he hosted at Conestoga College. He invited us as a speaker, and he's been attending each of our events for the the last 3 years.
Wow.
And he says now he's in a position where he occupied a leadership role. He hosted the event. He raised about $20,000 to run the event. And all was because of the networks and the connections that he built through the Redefine community. And he understood what leadership really means. And he built confidence.
Wow.
And now he went on to empower about 500 other students who showed up to that event.
Wow.
So I think that is like just one example.
Very
and we have seen so many, like, you know, they've got confidence more. They've built their own brands on LinkedIn now and people know of them. And I'm like, this is incredible.
That must feel like, you know, seeing your baby succeed or seeing a child do something good, right? Yeah, I completely understand. Okay, now pivoting to something, you know, that could be personal. It's personal to me, could be personal to you, but I'm sure a lot of our audience watching us would want to know that being an immigrant woman of color, right, and trying to lead an initiative which is not just one community or you know a locally based, a global initiative, right? What kind of resistance or stereotypes have you faced, if you have any? I'm not saying that everybody has to, but since most of us, hence the question.
Yeah, I think the biggest stereotype, if any, was when I was working my part-time job at this pizza place in Vancouver. And I remember while I was working there, you know, like obviously everyone else there was an immigrant as well, as I mentioned to you. So I think the owner by default just assumed anyone coming there is going to keep doing this for the next 10 years of their life. So that was the stereotype as well. And at that point, like, you know, I was figuring out life. So I was trying every single thing. I was attending conferences, case competitions, and I was late to the shift, I think one of the days, and he starts going off at me in front of others, and he's like, what do you think? This is your life. I am your boss. Like, you know, like, you owe your thing to me because without me you're nothing, kind of a thing. And, you know, forget about building your company. And I've been made fun of quite a few times when I expressed that, you know, I want to build a community for immigrants. And they were like, people like you can never do it, like especially, you know, South Asian origin people, because that is the cohort of people who are working there. So he just assumed that that's what everyone's going to do. And that was the day I actually walked away from that job. And I said, you know, like, you'll see. And then I think 3 months after I went there, once I had got a job offer from 4 different consulting firms and, you know, built Redefined when we started having momentum. And I went there and told him, I said, each of these people working with you here have incredible potential. So you make sure you treat them well. Otherwise, they will leave here and become so much bigger and you will regret why I ever treated them that way. So I think that was one of those moments where I felt just assuming because I was an international student, people thought I don't have it in me to do something.
I get you.
But yeah.
Okay. So now, like going a little back to the question that I initially asked about you wearing different hats, like you're a mentor, you're a leader, you're a speaker, you're working in a consulting firm. Does Ritika Saraswat face a burnout and how does she handle that? Like, you know, everybody can have a different, your solution might not work for others, but still, like, you know, what is it like for you to take care of that burnout?
Yeah. And I think it definitely comes. We're all human, right? Absolutely. We are not God. Unfortunately, I wish we were. So I think burnout comes for everyone. I think it looks different ways for every person. I think for me, because a big part of my life involves me being very creative, me putting myself out there. So I know I'll usually have creative blocks that come into my career, and that's quite stressful because when, you know, a lot of your career is dependent on content and things you put out, it can be quite scary when suddenly one day you wake up and you don't have ideas coming to you. I think I've realized I go back to connecting with my core of why did I start this in the first place, and I remind myself of those goals and how, you know, I'm trying to do this for people, you know, beyond just myself. And I have that responsibility because I believe I have a fairly privileged life. I have legs, I have hands, I can talk, and I have the freedom of choice, which I know a lot of people don't. So I think I just remind myself of my purpose and take
gratitude.
A step back.
I would take away from what you're saying, you know, being grateful for what you have and kind of probably, you know, writing and you know, putting it out there sometimes.
Correct.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Ritika. We'll continue the show. Right now, we'll go on a short commercial break and we'll be right back after the break. We are in conversation with Ritika Saraswat, the founder and CEO of Redefine, who has helped so many others find their own narrative and set their own path. See you right back after the break.
अगर आपको दुबई या मिडिल ईस्ट नुमा ज़ेवरात की तलाश है, तो आपको दूर जाने की बिल्कुल जरूरत नहीं। आज ही हमारे मिसिसागा रिजवे स्टोर तशरीफ लाइए। अल करम ज्वेलर्स, हमारे पास सोने के बेहतरीन कंगन, कड़े, झुमके, हार और सोने के सेट्स भी दस्तयाब हैं। शादी हो या मेहंदी या कोई भी फंक्शन, आपकी पसंद के तमाम जेवरात आपको हमारे स्टोर में मौजूद मिलेंगे। आज ही हमारे स्टोर पर तशरीफ लाइए। अल करम ज्वेलर्स, 3465 प्लैटिनम ड्राइव, यूनिट 99, मिसिसागा, या फिर कॉल करें 905-828-0009। अल करम ज्वेलर्स, फरमाइश आपकी, गारंटी हमारी।
In times of trouble, what do? Do you face it alone? Or do you find the best help that
heat wave or a cold snap and your system taps out? Don't panic. One Touch HVAC is just a call away. Fast, friendly, and always ready, day or night. From quick fixes to full installs, we've got your comfort covered 24/7. Call 905-488-1654 or visit onetouchhvac.ca. One Touch is all it takes.
Welcome back. We are still in conversation with Ritika Saraswat, and without losing any further time, we will right away get into the conversation. So Ritika, now since you have been in Canada, worked so closely with different communities, authorities also, I would believe, do you think Canada can do better in supporting international students other than just looking at from the academic lens? I'm sure there's a lot of academic reform that comes, but other than looking at it just from the academic lens, especially around mental health, employment, and EDIB, like, equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, which I hear gets thrown around so much. But do you think there's something better Canada as a country or a bigger community do?
Yeah,
from what you've seen?
Absolutely. I would say it comes down to three main things. And I think before that, I would also say that I think with all the new policies that have come in, and a big part of the policies have been, the restrictions that have been placed in terms of the number of people coming in. I know a lot of people have had negative reactions about it, but in a way, I am quite supportive of those. And the reason I say that is because when you work with students on the ground and with immigrants, you realize how so many of them were honestly suffering because they came in because of wrongful practices, the wrong people and the wrong stakeholders involved. And now they were facing difficulties just because of those individuals existing
and
in the
circle.
Stuck,
like they're here
exactly.
Now,
and none of fault of theirs. And I think the government was also trying to do the best from their side, but it's only so much you can do with the resources you have available. And I feel like ever since the restrictions came into place, even though temporarily people were kind of angered by it, I now see it playing out in a lot better way, whereby anyone who has been coming in or who is here has a lot more clarity now in terms of where they see themselves going. They're coming in with a lot more of an educated choice being made rather than just showing up kind of a thing. So I think that's been a very good thing. I think the second is in terms of policies. I think definitely Canada can do a better job. And what I mean by that is I think there are a lot of grants, for example, or even a lot of services that may be limited to international students specifically, who may not be PR holders and above, which makes sense from a country's perspective. But I think from a student's perspective, it does create issues because they tend to fall through the cracks because there's a lot of support for refugees and immigrants who have a PR, but nothing for international students. So I think that becomes a challenge financially, emotionally, and even from a social capital standpoint. I think the third thing would be is educating more of the employers. So I don't think this is more of a Canadian government piece, but I think even from an employer perspective, I think there's more education and awareness needed in understanding the value truly that immigrants and newcomers are bringing to the table.
And I think also understanding that Canada as an ecosystem is immigrant made. Like I myself was an immigrant a couple of years back, like a new immigrant. I'm still an immigrant, a new immigrant. And for every job you want to apply to ask you for a Canadian experience, you won't have that unless you have a first job, right?
Correct.
So that kind of was a loop. I was lucky enough to get one. But then, I do understand what you're saying, that, a lot of awareness on that side would really
and I mean
help.
Canada has been doing better in that. Like Toronto as an example was where in certain industries they forego the Canadian experience, and a lot of employers now have started hiring people beyond just them having Canadian experience. But I think there can be much more that we can do to do that, and maybe the government implementing a policy could be where you can see every employer abiding by it. Instead of it just being a good to have, it should become a need that every employer has.
Now, you being a student, you're talking from students' lens. Now, I being an immigrant who landed here as a permanent resident, I look at it from different lens, wherein we were asked to apply as a skilled labor, federal skilled labor. So when the government is calling me a skilled labor, and then I come here and then I'm told you cannot be hired because you don't have any experience. So that kind of throws you off, because I'm skilled. I have all experience in education. I was working and doing very good for myself. Your government said come as a skilled labor, and then I came, and then I'm thrown. Like so everywhere that systemic issues are there. But like you said, I think the whole fact that you and I, two immigrant women of color, are sitting here and talking about this does definitely mean that Canada is doing better, and there is a lot of hope for people who are going to come. So
absolutely.
I think that's absolutely true. Now, I know that you have become one of the youngest and most influential LinkedIn voices, right? So, taking away from that experience and what worked for you, would you like to kind of give few advices, or say not even advice, like just share something that worked for you, wherein students can use social media platform to actually, increase their visibility and make authentic connections?
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is I think social media today, or personal branding as this concept, was something I started talking about very early on in my journey, and not a lot of people were speaking about it at that point. And I see it as this tool that, especially as immigrants, helps you really see, helps people see you the way you want them to see you. What I mean by that is, most oftentimes when you walk into a room, let's say based on your gender, the color of your skin, your legal status, people have so many assumptions that they form about you, right? But through social media, you have this beautiful opportunity to influence how people think about you.
Kind of write your own story,
exactly,
right?
Yeah, by being strategic about what you put out for people, right? And that's where it comes into place. And LinkedIn, and I tried it out for myself first, and I realized, my God, this works. Let's see how others can do it too. So I think the number one thing I would say to anyone who is an international student, an immigrant who's looking for opportunities, maybe figuring out themselves and finding themselves being, facing consequences just because of how they look or where they are from, is use platforms like LinkedIn, especially professionally, to really look at it honestly, open it on your phone and look at it and be like, does it tell the world what I want it to tell? And if it does not, I think you've lost half the battle there, because that's where everything is happening today, whether it's recruitment, whether it's referrals for opportunities, whether it's investments, like investors want to make in entrepreneurs, it's all happening on that platform.
You can connect with hiring managers, so like, organically there.
Exactly. Like once I got my first job, every other job I've got over the last 3 years has been offered to me through LinkedIn, just because of that presence you create, which before people even meet me, they already have 2 to 3 words that they have come to their mind when they think of Ritika, maybe leadership or whatever it is. And that is the interesting part, because I'm not saying you could fool people, but it's also unfair in a way, because there are so many people in the world who are incredibly capable. Like even so many awards that I have won, I'm sure there's someone in the world who's more capable than me, but because they didn't choose to put themselves out there, they miss out on the opportunity. So that's why it's so important.
I know. Today's world is a world of where it's not just enough you do what you are doing, but also very important to tell your story.
Yes.
And like you said, it's very important to tell your story authentically and be, show up as yourself, because you can only go so much in a journey if you're not being authentic, is something that I believe. Okay, now I'm sure there's a lot of things that you would want to say when it comes to international students and the process of applying for jobs. But if you have to, kind of bring it into 3 things that I would want to ask it differently, not something that a student should do if they are looking for a job, but 3 things that somebody should not do if they are looking for a job.
Things that they should not do. I would say number 1 is not they should not apply mindlessly to any opportunity. I think a lot of us get caught up in the quantity game where we think, oh, if I'm applying to 100 jobs, I'm increasing my success rate.
Probability.
Which is completely false. In fact, if anything, the more jobs you apply for, you end up compromising the quality of the select few applications that you're really passionate about. So I would say number one is that. Number two is, I think, a lot of people not taking out time to figure out what is it that they really want to do in life. I think a lot of us get onto a train just because our friend is getting onto that train, just because our parents told us to get onto that train, or maybe because your career counselor at your university or college said this is the it career right now.
Or sometimes just because the train is there on the platform.
Exactly, yes. Just because it's there, you're like, oh, I don't want to be the odd one out, let me get on. You arrive at a station and you realize, oh my God, this was a station I never wanted to be a part of.
Yeah.
And there's this whole midlife crisis now. You're seeing more people at a younger age having today than ever before. And it's because of that, because we're not taking our time to discover ourselves. And that takes time, as you can imagine. But we're all on this cycle that, oh my God, I have to run quickly like everyone else. Yeah. So I think that would be second, is make sure you take out the time to figure out what is it that you really want to do. What's your why and purpose? And I think the third thing, if anything, is just know that no matter how shy you are, no matter how low self-confidence you have, you owe it to yourself to put yourself out there. Because if you don't, someone else is. And they are the ones who are going to go away with those opportunities. And all you're going to find yourself doing is sitting on the side, maybe crying about it or complaining, which is not fun to do.
And also, this brings to a point that you have to eventually start someday.
Yes.
So the more you're going to weigh, the behind you're going to be on the line. And deriving from your analogy on the train, I also read somewhere, which is so beautiful, that if we are on a wrong train, that's okay. Yeah. Sometimes life happens. There was a train on the platform and you thought that was yours. But the moment you realize on it, get off.
Yeah.
Right? Because the further you go in the wrong direction, longer it is going to take you on your journey back to the right platform.
Well
right?
said, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something, I read somewhere and always carry, and your train analogy kind of brought it back. So I thought I'll, share that. And also, you mentioned personal branding, and when I was following through your journey and then, trying to research, I see that you talk a lot about it, right? What is it that people are not doing or understanding about how important it is, like misconceptions around it? Do you want to share something?
I think the biggest misconception, as you might also assume or imagine, is people think building a brand means, boasting about yourself. People think it means, oh, I'm being too flashy about who I am, or, I'm saying things for myself. And, especially I think coming from a South Asian background or collectivistic cultures where we're all told to be humble, or, we're all told to not beat our own trumpet in a way, we are more hesitant to do it because we think it's not a good thing as if. But I think when you come to North America, and not just North America today, I think anywhere in the world, people will hire. Let's say even hiring, if I take as an example, I always say people are always looking to hire. They just need to know who you are. That's the reality of it, right? And even today, if you look at people who are even getting high percentages or whatever, or the most successful people in the world, they aren't the people who are the smartest, but they are the people who put themselves out there, right? So we all know it's a fact that the more visible you are, the more likely you are to get opportunities. It could be in a good way or even in a bad way. Again, it comes down to the responsibility that you take when you're in that position around how you treat that visibility, right? Do you use it for good or bad? But I think it matters at the end of the day. So I think that's the biggest realization. But a lot of people are hesitant to do it because they think it looks bad on them.
I think there's a very thin line between that humility and visibility that you need to you need to draw. Right?
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Like I think the difference would be is humility, combining it with visibility, is when you talk about the work that you have done without putting someone else down.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Boasting yourself as saying, oh, I'm better than the other person. Yeah. But if you just say, hey, I did this work and therefore I'm someone who can do this for you, that's, visibility.
So true. Okay, so now we're almost at the close of our show. So if somebody watching us right now is feeling lost and probably unsure where to begin, do you want to say that's one small step that they can do today, which might help them to redefine their path?
Yes, absolutely. I think number one is it's okay to be lost. I'm lost most of the days. I'm still figuring myself out. No one ever has it figured out. I think 99% of people are still figuring it out. So that's number one thing you should know. And I think if you are figuring it out, try a bunch of things. I think a lot of us assume life is just going to figure itself out. But I think it requires you to put yourself out there, try different things, try different opportunities, and create a checklist, right? Start crossing things off. Even if it means that you do something and you realize, oh my God, I was so shit at it, that's great.
You know
that's
what
progress.
not to do, right?
Exactly. You know what to do, and now instead of 5 things on your list, you have come down to 3. So you are making progress. So I feel like just put yourself out there, try things, and take it one step at a time, and it's going to figure itself out.
Thank you so much, Ritika. I think today while walking off to the studio, I'm going to take a few suggestions that you've taken, which is going to probably help me redefine my path.
Yeah.
So, but what I see in you is a leader who just didn't choose to redefine your own path, but also help others set their narrative. Thank you so much for doing what you do. Keep doing what you're doing, and touching so many lives out there. And to our viewers, if you're navigating through challenge, hope today's conversation made you realize that your journey is going to change the moment you choose to redefine your path. Thank you so much for watching us. This is Shrishti, and this is your show Unfold, where every voice is a layer and every layer a revelation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.